Hello, welcome back to the Non-Essential Workers Podcast, a left-wing podcast on media, politics, opinion pieces, the end of the world. No more COVID articles, please. Who knows?
You know what? Sorry to interrupt is the first thing, but I was just thinking the other day, man, I've seen a bunch of COVID news. We probably should talk about COVID more. It's going really bad.
Yeah, I haven't been picking up. You didn't like it. Anyway, I'm Alex. The person who just interrupted me is...
I'm Jason.
Yeah.
And I'm Aiden.
And this is just how it tends to go on this podcast. We're hot shooters. We interrupt each other constantly. It's
we hate COVID. Hot take.
Hot fire.
And this time I'll kick it off to myself because it's my turn. To start with the news
pass
section.
It to yourself.
Just did it. Stop me.
That's illegal.
Obama wording Obama.
Yeah. So I broke this down to 3 sections, and the first one is opinions and patterns. And we'll kick this section off with an article from The Atlantic, because we all love The Atlantic.
Yeah, I've been reading so much shit Atlantic lately.
Colleges have a guy problem. A recent viral news story reported that a generation of young men is abandoning college. The pattern has deep roots.
This is from The Atlantic?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, the entire premise 1,000 years ago of having, institutions of higher learning was for men to continue to be property owners. And as soon as it became clear that women didn't have to just birth out babies and raise them their entire lives, they started outperforming men in basically every single metric, like measurable data point in all of schooling, and including college. So as soon as in like the 1900s, college access became far larger for women, they started outperforming men like even crazier. And so that trend will only continue. I see no reason why it would ever stop. But I'm sure this article is trying to paint this as some like smarmy, like, but have you considered this? Like, who cares? What do you think, Aiden?
Well, I've read the article.
Damn it!
Or at least an article about this. Yeah, I didn't see nearly as catchy a headline though as colleges have a guy problem. That I probably would have chosen that.
Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. Is this like a rape culture article, or is this what I was expecting?
No.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, you're not like off the target, Jason. It has a few kind of angles that it comes at it from, and like from the supposition that men have more career paths available to them, essentially like labor jobs that require more physical strength,
like trade. Yeah,
exactly. That don't require higher education, and like the main. I did think it was a little weird though, because there's like, I don't know, it almost feels like this is probably too harsh, but like social eugenics kind of take.
Was this article sponsored by ITT Technical? I mean, what's the kind of thrust that they want to explain to the audience?
Well, at one point, at least, it veers into the other aspect of the problem, which is basically the main point of the article, which is not really that. And correct me, Alex, if you read it differently, but which isn't that men aren't getting college educations. It's that because they're not college educated women who more and more outnumber them don't want to have children and get married to them.
What? Wait, that's the causal link they're trying to draw?
Oh, I didn't read this article.
And men are intimidated by smart, educated women? I think the author protests too much.
The opposite.
Hey, what?
Women don't want to be with uneducated men.
Oh. That's probably true.
But it's basically, I haven't read this.
You know what this reminds me of? A shit article I read the other day, written by some dude who was in England, who was like, it's not fair that everyone on dating websites now includes their politics. What happened to having a politicless relationship with someone that's totally vapid and empty, and it doesn't matter what we have any connective at all other than we're attracted to each other? And everyone made fun of this dude because it was like, and he was like, "Oh, I'm a liberal, of course." But he kept talking about how everyone shits on Tories on like, I don't know, like London Tinder or whatever. It was very funny.
I have not read this specific article, because in keeping with the premise of this, I
Yes,
don't
yeah,
want to
that's
have read
great.
it. But there are many articles like this. And generally, right, as you say, there's a mixture between the like sort of incel argument about like why won't women fuck me, and it usually is like something unrelated to this, but they could say it's because they don't have a college education or whatever. Or it could be the argument men are less likely to be able to focus for long periods of time and be docile in a way that academics increasingly mandates through conformity and obedience, because men are more likely to act out and have issues at various stages in their educational career, and they're as a result not as likely to succeed at this kind of uniformity grist mill that institutions of learning are increasingly becoming. And there's also kind of a, as you say, the angle of they could do other jobs that aren't requiring education, or they might go into the military more likely, or they might go into any sort of rush into business before they have their degrees. And this is also borne out at graduate level. Like women are almost 60% of grad students now, which again is fine. But I mean, it kind of has it has the framing of almost like too many women are becoming mages and too many men are becoming warriors. Like it has this framing of like their class is too well defined. It's like to me, there's almost like an RPG framing of like this is the thing that their natural stat block tends them towards. And it's like, well, if that's true, then good. They're finding the thing they're good at.
You know what else it reminds me of? It reminds me when people like when basically a scientific discovery disproves the hypothesis. So the hypothesis is like, humans are just tabula rasa. We could be whatever we want to be. And it turns out, like, when they do the science, it's like, well, no, actually pretty locked in certain genetic ways. I'm like, oh, this does not bode well for our ideology. Like, yeah, men and women have some differences, and those are going to be borne out in various institutions throughout society. You can't pretend that we're just all blank slates.
I mean, studies have shown that women talk more than twice as much as men throughout the course of their lives.
Uh-oh.
Well, what is academics? It's a bunch of talking and writing. Like, by the time you get to the higher levels of education, the whole thing is talking and writing. So men of action are not really needed when you're doing your dissertation on like mole rat subdivision in the aquifers in the upper basin of the, like, no one cares. Like, it's just sitting there grinding through a million things you have to write about and having tremendous patience. And anyone who has kind of like an attention deficit type issue or like wants to do physical activity, or like, it's not going to work out. It fucking sucks. You have to sit there and do it. So there are certain people who are more predisposed to that, and someone who's like high testosterone, high action energy is not going to want to do that mostly. And not like a hard rule, obviously. I mean, we're not talking about like 1-to-1. Everyone's a woman in college, but there's a reason why there's a trend here. I don't really give a shit. Like, if that's the trend, that's the trend. But there are some people, especially more like conservative, social, kind of old school conservatives, who are like, this is outrageous. We didn't even used to let women get educations. Now they're out taking us. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, that's what it strikes me as. It strikes me as like it's like all those articles bemoaning like, here's the consequences of women in the workplace. This is just the step below that, which is women in the education space.
Yeah, and it's one more thing, and I have no data to substantiate this, but women also probably have more reason to be hungrier for higher education, since, as you just referenced, Alex, it is not. It's a more recent development and opportunity for them than it has been for men.
But there's two components of this that I did not hear in either the article headline or in any previous article about this.
Mhm.
One being the overproduction of elites, which is to say, there's a million people going to college now of both genders, and there's like a tenth as many jobs as there are graduates in a lot of fields. So what does it even matter?
Problem and a demand problem in terms of managerial people.
Too many people are going to college relative to the economy's capacity to employ them with the degrees they're getting. So whether or not there's more women or men is not really the issue. The issue is, are any of them going to be employed in the thing that they're doing their training in? And the answer is most of them will not. Most of them will have to go do some other bullshit and be like a master's degree working at McDonald's, because that's just how our economy is currently structured. So that's, to me, a much bigger issue than whether it's more or fewer women, in the situation. But the other problem is, the economics of going to college are incredibly gentrified at this point because of the obscene increase in cost. So we're going to start seeing things like, it's like when China, where they're like, okay, you can only have so many kids, so who's going to get aborted? When you have only so much money and it costs a fortune to send someone to school, if there's a marginal advantage to a female on average to going to school and completing school, at rates of success and whatnot, then if you can only afford to send one of your kids to school, you send the female, right? Like, it would increasingly create a pressure due to economic restraint on who you prioritize your resources for this activity. And even if it's only a very small advantage, if you can only do one and you're forced with like a Sophie's Choice style decision about how you spend your money on your kid's education, that would push this trend. Whereas if it was like, hey, this college is basically free for everyone because it's a national institution set up like most socialized countries, everyone goes to college if they want to go to college. They don't if they don't. Like this has created an artificial pressure due to the extreme financial cost of attending college.
I think you've crystallized it totally right. I hate to say that everything comes back to capitalism, but everything comes back to capitalism. As you've mentioned, the capitalist pressures we put on surviving in the modern day creates these problems. And then people are bending backwards, stuffing their head in their ass, trying to figure out why things are happening and going badly. It's like because we've created perverse incentives. If the only way to make a living is to get rich by having a managerial education, then that's where people are going to try and do. And it's going to create a girth of too many people trying to get in that small hole. And as you say, if we socialized or nationalized many of these things and, made the value of trade skills just as valuable as education skills, then we have a far better, cleaner, easier, less painful distribution.
Yeah, it's, this is a real problem. I just don't think that almost any of the articles that cover it offer real insight or solutions to them, unfortunately. Especially because, as we've been talking about, they're sort of linked to systemic problems that no one really wants to touch except the sort of fringe. But speaking of guy problems, here's an article from the New York Times. Chris Cuomo sexually harassed me. I hope he'll use his power to make change.
I don't see the articles in here, by the way.
Oh, sorry. I should probably be linking them. Yeah, I'll do that.
I thought he said he was going to resign. Now I look like the fool because I said he wasn't, and then I said he was.
No, this is Chris Cuomo.
Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo. Not Andrew Cuomo.
This host on the TV?
I think.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oops.
Like brother.
The fucking curve music.
The Pikachu face.
Yeah.
Can't believe this man who provided cover for his admitted abuser.
The nepotistic celebrity of a fucking governor who covered for his sexual harassing brother is going to do something about sexual harassment. The other thing that's offensive is the second sentence is actually worse than the first sentence. Because first sentence, like, all right, yes, we get it. Men sexually harass women all the time. But the second sentence, what power and what change? The fuck are you talking about? What is Chris Cuomo going to do? He's going to go on TV like, I grabbed this woman by the pussy. I'm sorry. All my listeners who beckon on my every call and whim, don't do that. What? That's not how power changes hands in America.
What motivation
has changed?
Why would he do that to himself? I hope he'll testify against himself in court. Like, what is she saying?
Oh, he's probably just going to sue this person for like slander or attempt to.
It's just really funny to me. It's like, this person murdered my father. I hope they turn themselves in and plead guilty. And like,
why does this article exist instead of going to the police? Like, why is whoever wrote this think that the avenue to have their grievances, which are probably legitimate, just based on like percentages of these things we know,
right?
Why is their solution to this grievance write a fucking article about it?
Probably,
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have pursued the police and they have the court system and they've been rebuffed. I don't know, but like this seems to me obviously not the correct way to deal with this.
I mean, yeah, the police's record for handling and resolving sexual harassment, especially, but many
just go straight to CNN or whatever and get them fired.
It's like 1.1%. So
I mean, clearly, this person must have worked in his newsroom, so they're probably connected to the news organization. That is he a CNN or he's on CNN, right? Like CNN loves firing people. Just get him fired.
I mean, he's a pretty big name for them, getting him fired. I mean, it could certainly happen.
He's just a big bitch. He shits his pants every time he's called out in like an Italian restaurant.
I would say allegedly, but no, that's true.
No, that is well documented.
Yeah.
Someone called him like Mario or whatever, and he lost his shit. He tried to accuse him of a hate crime or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of just this reads almost like Stockholm syndrome to me.
It's gabagool.
And I don't know anything about this person. I'm assuming they're a woman. But yeah, it's like grotesque to the two sentence. It's like you know that subreddit, like the 2-sentence horror story or whatever?
I don't, but this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, you try to make like a scary story with just 2 sentences. Yeah, because like he was able to harass you because he had power. That's how he used that power. And now you, yeah, it's like it's a very strange, perverse thing to write. But yeah, also, I think you're entirely correct, both of you. Why would he do that? He has zero incentive.
I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know I couldn't sexually harass.
I mean, you could literally translate this sentence to, I got sexually harassed, and my society will do nothing about it. I hope I can use a very mild form of shame to get my harasser/abuser to victimize themselves publicly.
Well, actually, maybe she's been like Joker-fied, because it doesn't say positive change. It could be she wants him to keep spreading misery across the world.
I hope he'll use his power to victimize more women, and then I am victimized less.
I hope he gets the lock door button installed on his desk.
Oh Christ! Fucking Matt Lauer.
The Lauer.
Yeah,
thing.
That was so bad.
That was like that was a Hank Scorpio move. That was some Bond villain shit. You gotta give him props for at least that.
Yeah, that was one of the darkest ones of all.
You gotta give him that.
Well, next he's got to get the chute installed to drop them to like a pit of fire, like Dr. Evil.
Yeah, that one broke a lot of people who thought he was like America's sweetheart. Yeah, this article just fucking baffled me. There's not even that much more to say about it. It's just completely insane that that's even what someone would assume would work. That is where we're at in America. Me too. Is dead as hell.
I laughed. I ate popcorn while reading this article.
But
I would just like to briefly note that, I mean, Jason already commented on this, but we were the thing that we were not baffled at all was the fact that Chris Cuomo is probably an abuser.
Oh yeah, not at all. Not even for a second.
We get it. Man did crime. We're like, that's not really up for question.
We're gonna dip back to the Atlantic for a moment and return to something we mentioned the other day, which is this supposed massive rise in crime.
Oh, you know what? I want to cut this off and interrupt again.
Well, you're going for it. So
we once again are ahead of the curve on everything. Because this week, post our last recording, I saw all Fox News was like, "Oh, you see the new crime did? Oh my god, FBI shitting their pants about us." Like, it's the same shit. And it's exactly what we all.
Yeah, of course it is. Because they literally have like a script that they run every year, and it's just even more intense this year because they have to push back against BLM. But anyway,
it was last year though, mostly.
It's not over. They're still trying to fight the ramifications of it, like bail reform and
no, but it's over in terms of being covered as a date, like a.
Oh, correct. The news will absolutely not cover it at this point. Anyway, take 5. America's having a violence wave, not a crime wave.
Yeah, that's the one I saw. That
on what exactly is going on now. On the surface, they're technically correct in the sense that murder went up, whereas other crimes went down.
It's the worst way to put it.
Just call it a murder wave.
Such a bad way of framing it.
They fucked up. That should have been saying a murder wave. Because violence isn't necessarily up. Because violence means like armed robbery, battery, domestic violence. But no, it should be a murder wave. And that's awesome.
A murder wave is much cooler than violence.
The murder wave should be our new band / the title of this episode.
Yeah, it's a new genre of music. Murder wave.
Wow.
Too funny.
Yeah, this is technically correct. Actually, no, not technically correct, as you just pointed out.
Technically incorrect.
Yeah, lethal violence, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's just like such an obvious framing to make it seem as shocking and demoralizing as possible, as if things are escalating across the board, because violence is worse than crime is obviously the intended message.
Right.
Not that violence is a subset of crime, which is what it actually should mean and technically could be read as.
I don't know. I'm not sure that is the intended message.
You don't think so?
I think the message is to, once again, the people who read these kinds of things, and like the overall consuming public of it, remember the 80s and 90s crime wave. So I think this is like a lib attempt to shift this away from old, like, subterfuge racial discussions about the crime wave. Because I think what they're trying to do is say, like, oh, don't worry, it's not like New York City under Giuliani. It's not like, LA riots in the 80s. And like, I think they're trying to reframe it as something that doesn't scare them as much.
Well, the problem is those two things are both extremely violent. So
I know, but what I'm
what's the
saying is
distinction.
when you say like the crime wave, that's almost like a
Yeah, it is.
proper
Yeah,
noun
it's coded. It's
where
coded
it's got
language.
very specific associated events and timelines and figures that go with it. And I think whoever wrote this is trying to reframe it. Literally. Like the way they're saying this is I will intentionally try to reframe this as not crime wave, but violence wave. I'm not really sure why though.
Interesting, because I read it more as if like crime is a statistic, but violence used this way reads to me like they're trying to shift it into a discussion of like a degradation of the culture or psyche or spirit of America, because that's also something that a lib would love to do.
But see, if you're like an 85-year-old crank Tory in America, you'd write America is not only experiencing a crime wave, but a violent crime wave. You'd like double down. You'd say it's not only crime, it's violent crime. It's even worse. The moral decay is even worse.
Wait, what's an American Tory?
A Tory in America sounds like a movie.
Being a conservative, I just thought it'd be funny to call someone a Tory in America.
Yeah, you should start calling conservatives Tories.
Freak Ted Cruz out when you call him a Tory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
The people who didn't want us to become our own country. Yeah, well, this was a really baffling headline. I think all it was really trying to say is the guy was reading the stats block was like, hey, look, murder's up, but the rest of the crimes are down. That's interesting. Article time. Like, I don't even think they thought through the implications of this line. It was just like, notice something about stats. Time to write.
Well, the world will never know.
But speaking of articles that are simultaneously terribly written and also perfect embodiments of that mythos, this is another one from The Hill. Okay. 5 reasons why this week's political war is different from all the others.
5 reasons why the air you're breathing this week is different from the air you breathed last week.
Mm-hmm.
God, I mean, you can't write a more banal article.
BuzzFeed or something?
Oh
That's God. What it feels like, doesn't it?
Top 5 political wars.
Top 5 shades of red. Like, what?
What dead war hawk are you most like?
5 simple rules for dating my teenage daughter.
See, now this one we have. Some of these are so egregious and create such an affront that we have to investigate them a little bit. We have to dip in like a single paragraph.
You want
what
to
are the
find
reasons?
Out the 5? Well, I can just link you the link then.
Because I'm just gonna go bullshit. Oh God, who are these people? As the image they used. It's like the ugliest people I've ever seen.
I will also point out to The Hill, if you're listening, if you say 5 reasons, give me 5 bold titles in your article, 1 for each reason.
Don't make me decipher and search the.
So, listeners, this is the 5. First, most political wars are binary: Republicans versus Democrats, House versus Senate, Congress versus President. Not this. No, this is more like a political world war where everyone is fighting different battles on different fields for different strategic objectives.
Oh my God. Right. Never before have liberal Democrats argued with conservative Democrats.
Second, this war
never before have psycho right-wing reactionaries argued with establishment old fart Republicans. Like,
the war is different from others because of the intense polarization of the country. Polarization. It just happened.
Even worse.
It just happened in September, late September 2021. We're polarized.
Yeah, this week.
Also, what war are they talking about? They put the cart before the horse.
Must be the infrastructure bill, right? And the reconciliation bill.
The whole keeping the government paid for and afloat. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this war happens every 4 years when we do this shit. Like, who cares?
This is
not a war.
Each reason is somehow dumber.
What's
third? This isn't about moderates versus progressives in a tax and spend argument, though that's literally all it is. This is further complicated by factions holding out for more parochial interests. Democrats conditioned their votes on restoring federal income tax deductions for state and local taxes, which the Trump tax cuts capped at $10,000.
Okay, first of all, that's the first reason, not the third reason. Again. But, like, this is a war about pork. Like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's literally what it's saying.
Let's move forward, then. Pork? What do you mean, pork? What is this? I've never heard of politics. What is this political pork you speak of?
The fourth point is summarized as they're basically just grandstanding so that they can have political ads in a year, which is called being a politician.
Oh, my God.
And the fifth one is big aspirational ideas are resting on razor-thin majority.
I thought it was just going to be big asses.
I would love if that's what it said, because that would be more relevant than this. They're acting as though Joe Biden is a guy known for his big aspirational ideas that are going to
having breakfast at 7 a.m. instead of 6.
Yeah, shoot him in the leg, Johnny. Like, that is the guy we're dealing with. This is the least aspirational person Democrats have had in office.
Like literally, Obama put the phone call in to kill all of America's aspirations.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Aspirations are dead. They're locked in his basement. Like that's what it feels like. So this article is nothing, and I feel
you read that second sentence. I remember President Obama chafing at criticism that he wasn't as bold as President Johnson.
yeah. I mean, I regret reading this article. This was garbage. But now you understand why we read the headlines, folks. Somehow it's worse when you read the
Holy shit. Also, look at the name of the guy who wrote it. Can't be by chance.
On the other hand, since we've done it, I guess we could just say the obvious. This is in no way different from any other political quote-unquote war that we've ever seen in this country. These are like the most obvious reasons for every single one of them. And once again, it's framed as a war when it's just a bunch of people jerking off and like waiting out so they can get their pork. So yeah. Thanks, Hill. Couldn't have done it without you.
It's almost like the Hill is trying to get people to not care about politics. Like, we will give you the most gray matter, banal, like, cube of nutrients to be fed so that you will stop caring at all. Gosh, they just don't want us invested in politics.
Let's get it trending, people. Hashtag the Hill is a psyop.
Yeah.
It's probably right.
The Hill to NSA pipeline.
Allegedly-ish, schmedgedly.
So let's move on to the next section called Domestic Follies. This is an article from Market Watch, which is always a great news source.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think I've even heard of it.
I'm no hedonist, but I want to build our next home for retirement. My wife says no. We've saved $3 million. What should I do?
Oh, are these the articles where it's like the moneyest, where it's like a guy? It's like Dear Prudie, but for a financial advisor.
Exactly.
I actually have one of those for our next episode. Yeah, this is insane.
They only have $3 million. How are they going to get a home?
I'm no hedonist. What does that have to do with everything that follows?
I'm no hedonist, but I'm 75 and I want to hire 100 day laborers to build myself a $3 million mansion.
That's what I'm saying. I'm no hedonist, but I want to be fanned by palm fronds and eat grapes while on a recliner as everyone else builds my palace around me.
Okay, everyone listening. If you have children and socialists have not taken over and destroyed the inheritance that exists in America, give your money to your kids. If you don't have children, there is no reason to die with money. Give it to everyone you know. Give it to people who need it. Go to soup kitchens. Donate your money. You don't need to sit on $3 million worth of gold coins in a garage. Spend it helping people's lives.
He's not a hedonist. He's not going to spend it on luxuries. He's just going to burn it. Like he's just going to sit on it till he dies and doesn't do nothing with it at all, apparently.
I'm just going to build a throne that I will die in and be kept alive for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Now, I understand that the housing market is completely insane and that most people are struggling to pay rent or certainly struggling to afford to purchase homes. But $3 million, you're pretty good. You can do pretty much whatever you want.
There's nowhere in America where you can't live your entire life off of $3 million. I don't care if you're 19 years old and you just got out of you're 21 years old, you just got out of college and you're living in Manhattan. You could survive with $3 million.
Well, yeah, because you live off the interest.
Just stop it with this. Like, am I being greedy by needing a porcelain, waterfront moat? And like, come on.
I don't. Is that the point of the headline? Seems like the main contention is not where the money can go or what it can buy. It's that his wife won't allow him to use it in the way that he wants.
Yeah, it's another one of that guy who we like making fun of, the Chicago writer.
The last line should be like, "Should I kill my wife?"
Yeah, right.
I don't.
Can $3 million buy me a home and also a hitman?
How much of this do I need to apportion to get an assassin? To get a hitman.
This has that kind of like, it has that tone of like the late middle-aged grievance where it's like, I worked hard my whole life to get this together, and now my bitch wife, is making it tough for me to retire.
And listen, I ain't no hedonist. I'm not gonna do anything crazy, but
who's the guy
man, could kill her.
Chicago guy who just complains about his bunions and his
Yeah,
wife.
we always talk about this guy too much as it is. It's John.
I can't remember his name ever though.
Yeah, it's John Cass. But to me, this sounds more like Tony Soprano. It's just like someone who's like, she don't know nothing about the business. I saved $3 million. She doesn't even want to buy a new house with A. Like, that's what this scene sounds like to me. Just grievance. Just like I'm not even like retired yet. I'm richer than I could ever need. Yeah, but my wife. Like, it's very funny.
$3 million, Jesus.
In the construction business. Anyway, that was the opening salvo. But not the only thing about homes and home ownership. As we move to a much more pressing concern.
Oh, God.
This one comes from New York Times. She bought her dream home, then a sovereign citizen changed the locks. A New Jersey woman was preyed upon by a fast-growing extremist group that claims its members are sovereign Moors.
You're 10 years behind.
US laws.
Everyone knows about the sovereign citizens. It's literally the only time I ever side with police. When watching police bust sovereign citizens is the funniest shit on the internet.
Yeah. But they're Moors.
God. They need to defend Maine, home of the Moors.
Just so people get a quick refresher, sovereign citizens are people who just don't want to pay like taxes or get licenses to drive. They pretend that the Constitution's illegitimate, that the Articles of Confederation are still enforceable, and that basically the entire government's illegitimate. So they can just do whatever they want. Instead of driving, they're traveling. Instead of paying duties and fees, they're just being free livers. Instead of having to own a house, you just barge into your house. It's just like that episode of Sunny. I mean, it's really not that complicated.
They're like libertarians that love LARPing.
They're all just tax frauds. We're just trying to scam the system.
An argument can be made that they're the most ideologically optimistic about all of us, which is that they believe that things are legitimate based upon some sort of higher meaning and not based on the coercive power of violence.
No, because they acknowledge the coercive powers of the Articles of Confederation. They just don't acknowledge the latest version.
No, but what I'm saying is,
you're just as much fraud.
Let's say that you didn't believe in the Constitution, you didn't believe in the United States and other things. Well, do you believe that the United States has a police force and a military force that will crush you for resisting it? Because the answer is yes, they have those, and yes, they will. So
they're just ignorant because they still get crushed by the police force. They still get coerced. They're just dumb about it.
They're acting as though the legitimacy of something as like written in the stars or like natural law or something or in some sort of legalistic framework matters at all for what will happen to them in these situations, which I think is ridiculous.
Very funny though, I must say.
Oh. Also, yeah, it's the fact that with all that context for what a sovereign citizen might be, they're using that freedom to change people's locks without them knowing. That's very funny.
How'd the guy get in? Did she invite him in? Is he like a vampire? Like you can't let a sovereign Moor into your house or they'll take your house over and change the locks?
Oh man.
So here's what it probably was. If you're buying a home, the home is empty. And as people try and come in and visit. Yeah. So the sovereign citizen, the doors are usually unlocked, or if they are locked, like there's a bunch of keys out there and the realtor has them. Like the sovereign citizens probably just broke in and were squatting while the house was on the market. And then they got concerned because someone was going to buy the house, so they went to Home Depot and changed all the locks. Like it's not this isn't a horror movie. These are just hucksters trying to live for off without acknowledging that we live in a society because we ordained our government to take care of it. You kind of have to acknowledge that the state exists if you want to have roads, have services, have water, have electricity, have people not killing each other in the street. Like that's the function of a government. So these people just government doesn't exist. Like, all right.
You don't have to like it for it to exist.
Right, you don't have to like it, but you have to acknowledge it's real.
Yeah. I just like that the image for this is like a woman. It's an African American woman leaning on the stairs, crying, how could I have let the Moors do this to me? It's it's bleak, but also very funny, and how absurdly this is presented. I can't even think about exactly how it went down that would be the situation. But, this is far from the only instance of America's social fabric basically disintegrating in real time. Here's our probably only COVID-related article this time from Wisconsin 12 News. Man punches nurse in the face multiple times after his wife is vaccinated for COVID.
Yeah, I saw this one. This one was funny.
Damn it.
I think he got arrested and charged with assault, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The nurse was almost like knocked unconscious. They had to pick her up off the floor when he was done.
Yeah, I just love how I'm sure he immediately felt justified in what he did. Like, you don't understand. She put the microchip in my wife.
Right.
Like, is filled with righteous indignation. He doesn't view what he did as assault. He views what he did as like self-defense and defense of his wife and his family. This is how warped and twisted the pandemic has become. And this is what happens when you politicize global events. If you politicize a tornado, people will try and go shoot tornadoes. If you politicize a pandemic, people will assault people trying to solve the pandemic. That's how it works. This is what we have sown.
Well, not just politicize, wildly misrepresent with fantastical.
Yeah, with disinformation. Yeah. Truly fucked.
I'm very much looking forward to the conservative Christian version of Taken in a few years, where a man has to hunt down the nurse who vaccinated his wife against COVID.
If you let her die of COVID, that'll be the end of it.
I have a certain set of skills.
I have no skills.
I have no skills
whatsoever.
I
have no measurable skills.
I'm a NEET. But still.
I own guns.
My wife is the only thing that matters to me.
Right, exactly. I had $500 to buy a shitty AR. Like, okay, you did it, sir. Truly living the American dream.
Literally free. Literally.
I have a set of psychotic delusions that makes me a nightmare for people like anyone.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Oh my god! This one, I actually read a paragraph of this because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Not only did he beat the shit out of this nurse, it wasn't even the one who vaccinated his wife. They don't even know if they not vaccinated his wife.
What?
He showed up at a pharmacy where they give vaccines, said, "Did you vaccinate my wife?" And the woman's like, "What?" And he just beat the shit.
So he's Charlie when he walks up to Santa Claus and says, "Did you fuck my mom?" and then bites his ear off.
That's exactly what this was.
Oh my god!
Wait. So this wasn't even a case where like his wife was in the hospital. And
he didn't even know if it was the place she got vaccinated or if she got vaccinated. He inferred that she got vaccinated, went to the pharmacy that they usually go to, and just beat up a nurse on the grounds that it's like, hey, probably one of you did it.
My wife's pregnant with a demon baby. Which one of you did it?
Oh, well, at least he didn't kill his wife.
In case you thought this wasn't dumb enough on the first read, that's some extra info. It's one of
I thought it was dumb enough, but no, I was wrong.
It's actually even dumber. But this is somehow not the dumbest, weirdest, most aggressive thing that people are doing in America. This one from Yahoo News. Chipotle customer pulls a gun after being told the location was closing early, police say. And in the accompanying video, this woman who's probably in her early 20s just casually pulls a gun out of her purse and holds up the guy making like the burrito and is like, "Oh, you're gonna make me that burrito, motherfucker."
You know what? I don't have as much of a problem with this
thing.
Was she more?
Who hasn't been held up at gunpoint to make a burrito? At least she wasn't robbing the place. She just wanted a burrito in time.
I don't think she ended up paying for the burrito because they didn't want to keep her in there any longer than they had to. But yes, the total theft that she perpetrated was probably like $10.25 as far as
but did she get
the cost of the burrito? I hope she did. If you're gonna risk, if you're gonna risk like assault with a deadly weapon or armed robbery, you better get guac. You know.
Did she get away with it though? That's the real question.
As of the time of the article being written, she was not yet found. But her
Can you imagine? Whatever like local news station you turn in, it's like local fugitive on the run, armed and dangerous, holding a burrito.
Yeah, face may be smeared with guac.
Good God.
Yeah, as of the time
you may hear her coming from the bag of chips crinkling and crumbling near you.
As of the time this was written, she was not caught, but since her face is clearly visible in multiple camera angles for like a minute, I think they're gonna get her.
This is why you wear a mask.
Yeah.
To conceal your Chipotle crime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Don't say we didn't try and help.
The people who watch the video, I guarantee you there's a contingent of people who are like the gun nuts who watch it, and it's like her form was terrible. Because it really was. Like, she was holding the gun like she'd never held a gun before, and part of me thinks it's like either fake or she's just an idiot, because like if she had fired it, it would have blown her hand off, basically, the way she was holding it. But still, it's still technically armed robbery, even if you're a dipshit.
Very funny. I approve of this article.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. But it's
That's
not
the kind of violence wave
Yeah.
murder wave I'm talking
We've all had bad days. I think we can understand there to some extent.
not all criminals are human.
Huh?
Sometimes from BBC.com, Shakira, singer attacked by a pair of wild boars.
Yeah, I saw this too, but she was with her kids too, right?
Her and her son were like robbed by boars.
They didn't get hurt though.
No.
But why didn't she turn into a she-wolf and scare them off? Got him.
What
Bazinga.
What did they take from her? Like, was she holding like a platter of truffles or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Her
the basic
massive
snack.
truffle platter that she was just trying to get to the next buffet with.
I mean, it would have been
Yeah.
horrible, but it would have been funny if they like dragged her kid off.
To eat.
Just like run into the forest.
I
with
mean,
her
it's
kid.
not even implausible. If a big enough boar got to a kid, yeah.
Man, boar magic's the best. Boars are great.
She tried to puff up her size to intimidate them, but the hips wouldn't lie.
That one doesn't quite work.
It's the best I could do on short notice.
Best you can muster.
Yeah.
Hey man, fetch quests are dangerous. Okay,
Yeah.
don't bring your kid with you.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to say on the.
Okay,
topic.
there is a larger political point to be made here.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh,
yes, I will polish this turd into something. So this has actually been really happening on the rise a lot all throughout. I don't know where they were exactly, but for example, in Texas.
Oh.
Now I don't know if we read it on here or just we talked about it separately. There's this rise of like boar pig hybrids because boars and pigs are still close enough genetically that they can reproduce with one another.
Yeah.
Even though boars are absolute monsters compared to the domesticated pig. But the point is, boars and pigs run rampant in America. And it's because of decay, capitalist decay, the inability to collectively tackle large issues, especially amongst farmers and huge swaths of America where there's just farmland as far as the eye can see. And it's very difficult and expensive to hire people, to trap them, to push them away. And so we've just the same way we have urban decay, we have like heartland decay. And there are millions and millions and millions of boars in this country that just roam free, deal billions of dollars of damage in terms of consuming crops and destroying crops. And so I'm not surprised that on what used to be like some kiddie safe, hiking trail, there's bears and coyotes and hyenas and not hyenas, but like boars, like all sorts of monsters you can find because America is falling to decay. So I'm totally unsurprised that people are getting attacked by boars the same way people are getting attacked by bears and people getting attacked by, mountain lions all the time now, even in suburbs. And dogs are going missing by like the thousands because of coyotes and shit like that. Because America has stopped giving a collective fuck about our society and we're just letting nature take back over.
It's not just America. I think it's actually happening in Europe or Spain.
Whatever. The entire world is just as decaying.
This is a tragic article to me because this is the rare time where I like everyone involved. I like Shakira and I like
a bad person.
No, I'm just saying, like
I like boars, yeah.
Yeah. It's to me, this is my allies fighting.
You hate to see it.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to bleak reality as we enter our prison, police, and DHS section.
No, a whole section of this.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now. This is from where is this one from? The Hill as well. Lawmakers say police reform talks are over.
Huh?
The police reform thing we're doing? Yeah, it's not happening.
What lawmakers? Where? What are they talking about?
Great question.
Could they be any more vague?
Lawmakers.
Do not talk to anyone involved in law about police again. What talks were they ever having?
Great question.
They just really want to drive the knife home, like these hypothetical talks that we might have agreed to have at one point. we're definitely not ever having them. And also, it's also over.
Lawmakers declare performative theater about police reform has ended.
This
The
is like those
show
Twitter
again.
like blank is over parties. Like this is essentially cancel culture, but they're canceling police reform. It's been canceled.
Police reform is problematic.
We dug into prison reform's old tweets.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, this bipartisan coalition of conservative Democrats and Republicans couldn't agree on police reform.
Wait, Democrats don't want to solve issues? Huh?
Yeah.
I'm surprised. God.
But
Well, I mean, fortunately, the issue's not a problem anymore. So,
yeah, we're not talking about it anymore because it's
Well, so, yeah, that's the fundamental assumption here. It's the same way with like we were talking about with the news, like not covering BLM anymore. It's like as soon as they deem it's no longer worthy to be covered or it's no longer worthy to be discussed, it simply stops existing. We talked about this, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, about like all these people are essentially solipsists. Where if it's no longer in my conscience, if it's no longer in front of me, I don't see it anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. It stops existing. Afghanistan didn't exist for the last 15 years. Oh wait, now like I'm hearing news about it happening. Oh no, Afghanistan exists.
haven't you heard that Biden's polls are dipping because of Afghanistan?
Police are hurting people. This doesn't exist. Oh wait, it does. I'm going to go back to where it doesn't exist anymore. Just the way in which people with power so casual, like, we're not doing that anymore. We can't. We got rid of that from the patch.
This article could literally be law has failed. Like the process has failed to achieve fundamental necessary objective. All right, what else is on? Like that is the level of nonchalance.
Exactly. Just change the channel.
That is the level of nonchalance that they're taking to an incredibly serious problem that is basically pervasive throughout the entire United States, to the point that the UN has designated us like a dangerous place to be a civilian. Unironically. That's how we tried. I mean, we didn't really, but we'll say we tried.
Well, of course, we don't care about the poor and people of color, but also we don't even care about the fact that like over the last year and a half, police have like publicly threatened elected officials multiple times when any kind of talks even were seeming to be brewing to begin. Even that's fine. It's just it's so complicated. Let's go back to fundraising for the next election. I'm sure everyone will give us a mulligan again when we do nothing, get nothing done ever.
I'm sure that the police unions are very pleased with this outcome. So
we are pro union, so I guess
someone's happy.
Yeah,
at least they please some constituency.
I was talking about this to my mom the other day. Like they were surprised about some bus drivers union like objecting to all the bus drivers getting vaccines. It's like, this is the privilege of having a union. When you have a union, they'll fight for you even when you're in the wrong.
Yeah. The
only people in America who still have unions, the unions will fight for you even when you're dipshits. Police unions, firefighter unions, as you said, all these people will defend you when you're in the wrong. Imagine how they defend you if you were in the right. This is why everyone deserves unions. Because everyone deserves representation, even when they're being stupid.
Well, fortunately, we have new guidance from the Biden administration. This is another Hill article. This one will help, certainly, with the crisis at the border of our dystopian immigration policies. According to Biden, they now say that the Department of Homeland Security stresses officer discretion in new deportation priorities. Really, it's just up to the DHS officers whether you get to stay in the country.
Feel particularly bad for this mopey-eyed kid? You can let him stay. Who cares? Standards, rules, regulations. Who needs those? Just make it charity. Just whim. Be discreet when you rape and kill, some migrant woman.
I thought the worst and most pathetic outcome of like the horrible photos of Border Patrol treatment of Haitian immigrants was going to be when what Biden took away from that is that horses need to be banned from use on the border. Just a real thing that Jen Psaki said.
What?
Oh,
Really?
God. That's the thing we posted last week, where they're cowboys riding down.
Okay, but they were what? They're concerned that the horses are gonna like get hurt. What are they talking about?
They determined that was why people were angry. I guess that horses were involved in it
because it was evoking imagery
history.
Of like runaway slave patrol.
Okay, but if George Washington had a car, he would have run down and chased escaped slaves with a car.
Yes, you are correct. It's very
the mode of transportation doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, but it would have been that much cooler, is what they're saying.
Yeah, it's easy.
You know, if you're playing Age of Empires and the Dodge Viper with machine guns that shoot when the door flaps come out, you're not like, oh, we have to ban that. Like, no, it's the same premise. It's a unit trying to hurt you. Oh, God.
Yeah. Look, the issue is we haven't been giving police enough discretion to abuse people.
Yeah, we firmly trust in every officer's judgment. We're done trying to make rules that they have to follow. We just want them to really think about what they're doing.
Yeah, just do whatever. Like, it's your call, really. It's up to the individual Homeland Security officer, which is basically the even dumber version of a cop, whether or not these people who are desperate and fleeing humanitarian crises that we either engineered or ignored, whether or not they should be able to survive, literally survive, or be thrown to the wolves metaphorically, or in some cases literally, as we push these people basically back into the sea. The idea that this should be up to an individual person's discretion who basically has no real training or education, that let alone morality or like supervision to make that kind of choice, is exactly the kind of diffusion of responsibility I would expect from Biden. It's not his fault. It's some dipshit that he put in charge of this who has no training or ability or ethics. Not my baby.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Yep. They might as well just hire sovereign citizens now.
Yeah. New Sovereign Moor initiative to
rescue arrested by the Moorish.
Yeah. Well, that was a little too upbeat. So our next article is going to be from CNN, and this touches right again on why it's not really that important that the murder rate spiked, all things considered, compared to suicide rate among active duty service members has increased by 41% between 2015 and 2020. Which I'm pretty sure means that we're killing ourselves at a much higher rate than anyone else is killing Americans.
Yeah, this I find very surprising, especially the dates, because they say active duty service members.
Yeah, it's not vets that are home.
From 2015 to 2020, like the twilight of the wars in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like this is the middle of the surge, where there's the most shell shock and the most PTSD and the most damage and the most violence. This is the tail end where all that stuff's like invisible now.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the point, is that there's less like easy reasons to grasp and like preeminent danger.
Yeah, but the people aren't the people who have the joystick controlling the drone aren't the people killing themselves.
No.
Those people are trained to treat it like Call of Duty kill streaks. This I find surprising. I guess it's just they come home and America's only gotten worse since then. Like, America's become so much worse of a place since 2015 to 2020. I can start to see it.
Well, not just that, a much smaller total number of people have all the responsibilities stretched across them that the entire massive apparatus used to when we had huge amounts of boots on the ground. So now it's the same, like basically objectives until.
Yeah, and all these people have come over, been totally displaced.
Yeah.
All the people still there, yeah, you say they're under more pressure because it's basically downsizing and outsourcing, but for the military, which is especially fucked up to say. Don't see those two horrible forces coming together. Wow.
Maybe it's also like all the pieces over the last 5 years about how horrible things are in military culture. Like, you keep hearing about how
all the rape and all the
group you're
promotion and murder.
It's offers gangbang recruits and stuff.
But I don't know. To me, it's just like America won't care because we don't view suicide the way we view murder. As a country, as a culture, we view suicide as like weak people just culling themselves from the population. Whereas we view murder as like the going against God's plan of someone's life was ordained to be amazing and you took it or snuffed it out. Like, we judge murder more harshly than we judge suicide. We often vilify victims of suicide. We often say it was their fault. They had it coming. They fucked up. They didn't seek help. We put all the blame on them. So this is just going to fly totally under the rug. Who cares if like 20 more people got killed in New York City this year? Well, this will be totally put to the side.
I would broadly say you're right, but hold on. There was another article that had a sort of Telltale Games style interjection about this one, which was like,
will someone remember this?
Kamala Harris didn't like that. Like, it was literally an article that's just like, Kamala Harris discovered that there's an enormous suicide increase in an already high amount of active duty soldiers, and she's like, that upset me.
I'm going to cut myself off because I do not want to make a suicide joke about Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So I will just say, I have given you the premise. You make it in your own brain.
I give you all the clues.
Yeah.
I say N-word. You get to fill it in for yourself. I don't get to take any of the blame.
Yeah, you're going to leave a geocache on that joke.
Fuck it, Kamala Harris.
Yeah, no one gives a shit.
I said that like Iron Sheik. I was like, fuck it, Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Fucking bullshit.
Kamala.
Speaking of Kamala Harris, since we're here, I'll dip this around a little. Here's a Politico article. Harris's office does damage control over students' Israel ethnic genocide comment. And since that's word salad, I had to read a little bit of this just to give us context.
Hey, no, I want to guess.
Okay, go ahead.
So they mean like the office of the vice president, like her staff.
Yes.
What student could they possibly be talking about? A student who's maybe doing an internship with them, and they checked their Twitter or something, and they said Israel is in fact doing ethnic genocide, and they're like, oh, we can't have that. What student could they possibly have the purview over?
I mean, I know, but this is funny because it's incredibly badly written.
Is it even more?
Harris have kids?
What student? They say it's a single student.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like, oh, the BDS movement. Oh, that's going throughout colleges in America. They say a single student's comment that Israel is doing ethnic genocide, which they are.
Right, which isn't even really ambiguous, but the actual basic premise here is this, because it's actually even darker when you know the truth. Kamala Harris went to an event at a school and was giving some sort of generic pro-Israel pitch. And a student asked a question that was like, well, what about all the ethnic genocide?
Oh, so in the Q&A, a student said, well, what about this real thing? Like, oh, we can't.
Yeah. And Harris is like, I feel you. I hear you. I am with you. Like, she gave some bullshit response that's like, your truth is your truth kind of thing. She didn't want to admit that what he was saying or she was saying was right, but she also didn't want to seem like she was being aggressive.
And that was not good enough, apparently.
And that was not enough of a knee-jerk Zionist response for the Israeli lobby.
They didn't burn the student asking a question in effigy. Not good enough.
Yeah, he's not expelled from the school for saying unambiguous facts about what's going on. Yeah,
you know what? Maybe the first article's right. Maybe girls should not be going to college as much. Maybe college is done.
Why are you assuming that this is a woman who?
No, just get out while you can. Like, just college is evil.
Well, if it was a girl who did it, she's the only one who made any sense.
My point is,
more and more women are being victimized by a college education.
By Kamala Harris. My point
a larger proportion of girls in school are being victimized by the vice president.
My point is this. I got out of college around 2015.
Yeah.
Okay? I got out like the tail end. I had some older friends who would tell me like, hey, college is not as open and free and talking about interesting things and challenging your ideas anymore. Like, it quickly was becoming a caustic and toxic environment. And I have no reason to doubt that has only gotten worse. And this, to me, is just an emblematic of that trend. Where it's like, you ask the question of ostensibly the second most powerful person in the free world? How dare you? Like, the premise of these institutions is to go there and learn new things and broaden your horizons and ask critical questions. If that can't be done to the most powerful people, what's the fucking point?
At this point, it's anti-Semitic to look at Israel. Like,
you point out on a map, and like, you can't do that.
Yeah, like if you literally just took an unedited 12-hour footage of things going on in Israel Palestine, it would be anti-Semitic because it would reveal the facts on the ground, which are bad. That's what this feels like.
Yeah. Yep.
But this is not even like you're wrong. It's like you can't be allowed to acknowledge that something might exist. This is like information control. This is not even we disagree. Oh God.
What did you have, Aiden?
No, I don't want to say anything because I'm not Jewish. So let's move on.
Well, yeah, I mean, fortunately, Alex and I are both technically, ethnically Jewish, so I'm gonna take that right and privilege and shit on them all I can.
As far as Israel's concerned, that makes us worse than you, because we aren't honoring our.
We should
identity.
know better.
You know, yeah, like they hate
Your race
anti-Zionist. Yeah, exactly. That's literally what they think. Like
Yeah,
they hate anti-Zionist Jews more than they hate,
Yeah,
Christians
they view us as
and
self-hating and betrayers to the
yeah.
ethno state. Fuck
Even though Israel was originally founded by a very much more left-wing government with the intention of an egalitarian state, we're the traitors.
Whatever. I'm too old for birthright at this point. I never got my fucking bat mitzvah, so they can suck my dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I
Bar
just
mitzvah,
want
rather. I'm not whatever.
at the very end bring it back to the fact that like
funny if I got a bat mitzvah.
The point is less about college and more about more about institutions of power. Like the fact that Kamala Harris, the fact that this article claims that Kamala Harris, the VP of the quote unquote most powerful country in the world, has to do extensive damage control because she happened to be asked a question that Israel and its proponents don't like.
Yeah,
it's just so absurd. It's like it's parody at this point. It's so ridiculous.
She would have had to have taken out a cane and beat this student like Charles Sumner in order to not have been too permissive. Apparently,
she would have had
she would have had to do the like, don't tease me, bro. Like, get him out of here. Honestly, the fucking Israel lobby wants the Trump reaction. Get him out of here.
The don't tase me thing actually isn't extreme enough, because even Kerry was like, "Hey, don't do it. Hang on, let me answer the question." Like they actually just tased him for fun, even though Kerry said don't.
Yeah, I know.
We need a minority report system just for anti-Zionist comments.
Yeah.
Drone strike delivered to every college student's doorstep.
No,
not them. Their family.
Of course, yeah.
No, the way Israel does.
It should be noted that the significant majority of younger generation Jews oppose the Zionist project in Israel. Not to say that they oppose the state, but that they oppose the state being an ethno-state.
Yeah, right? They oppose the state being fascist.
And a substantial, I would guess, plurality of the students who make these kinds of comments at these kinds of events are Jews.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who have the most to lose from Jewish identity being associated with a neo-fascist project.
And they're the ones going to a talk with the most boring VP about Israel-Palestine or whatever.
Yeah, so it's really, really funny when they immediately jump to anti-Semitic assumptions when a significant number, if not the majority of the people at these things are Jews, saying, don't do this, Israel, right? It's just a little historical irony.
It's just like the AP journalist months ago.
Yep. Which was also horrible, but we don't have time to talk about it. So let's briefly return to someone who's much more competent in the White House, which is Biden again. From Slate,
somehow true.
Yeah. Once again, proving that somehow we don't want him to die because Harris would take over. We now know why Biden was in a hurry to exit Afghanistan.
Yeah, I saw this headline. I was like, I knew it was such obvious. Whatever they were saying isn't the case. So I was like, I don't need to read this.
No, it's not anything important.
But I'm glad you suffered.
It is very funny to me that it's like 20 years into a pointless war. We now know why they were in such a hurry to stop it.
Did you actually find out, or do you have it wanted to speculate?
I have a strong suspicion.
Because I don't. I genuinely have no idea what the fuck it could be.
Because Biden said it in the fucking speech that I had to listen to while I was sitting for 45 minutes in the doctor's office.
I didn't listen to it.
Yeah, well, my guess, based on that speech, is that he was honoring a time commitment set out by Trump about when they'd have all foreign troops missing before the Taliban would decide to start randomly shooting.
Wait a sec. Politicians who disagree sometimes still follow each other's rules?
Yep.
What?
This is really Trump's victory.
Like, is this written by a 10-year-old who all they know is Trump? And like, when a new person takes office, they undo and dismantle everything the previous person does?
It probably
that's not usually how politics gets done.
Because it reads like they just finished an episode of Blue's Clues about Biden or something. We finally figured it out. Oh,
this would have had to have been written before that speech for it not to be asinine. Because he says it for like 15 minutes in the speech about why he had to leave when he did. he types it in like size 72 bold
They've
font.
signed contracts and agreements with various countries and the Taliban saying when they'll do a thing.
Because the Taliban was only agreeing to let them leave by that date. Otherwise, they were going to resume an open, hot conflict. Which
you mean you can't just renege on a geopolitical contract with the rest of the fucking world?
Yeah,
but you can pull out of a climate accord, like, oh my God.
And this tired old man who we have as our president sat there like, I couldn't have done anything about it. This was the timeline presented to me by Trump, and even though I disagree with him, we had to honor our commitments to the Taliban and to ourselves to not reinstigate.
I have a question.
Like, okay, cool.
I have a question. It's whenever the media uniformly comes out for or against something is when you should be suspicious. Why was the media so critical of the Afghanistan pullout? Like, I'm aware of some of the details, but I don't understand why everyone from MSNBC to fucking OAN agreed that, like, it was bad. Whatever it was, they bungled it somehow.
Well, there's a top secret reason for this that only I know. And it's that they're all hawks. They're all hawks from MSNBC to OAN. They're all hawks.
No. What I'm saying is, what do they say is why it was bungled?
What I mean is anything in which America's imperial posture is revealed to be a paper tiger because we can't actually commit all those resources and troops in any meaningful way without weakening our core. Anytime that we reveal how hollow and weak anyone is who tries to overextend militarily indefinitely, then we weaken our image on the international stage if the only thing you care about is whether or not we could brutally kill anyone we wanted to, and the fear of us doing that keeps the world in line. Because that's how people literally think of the United States in these hawkish
I agree. That's networks. The general message. I mean like the pullout itself.
Well,
why do people say it was bungled?
Because because they are conflating the actual pullout with the entire project, in that, one, it was done fairly poorly and without proper planning and strategy and coordination, both among local Afghani forces,
Afghan forces. There was miscommunication, and some people got trapped, and some people weren't aware.
And because the conflation is that it also then revealed how absolutely hollow and weak the government that we had propped up there was.
Right, the whole thing's been a bungle abortion since the very beginning.
And those things were like tied into one neat knot as like, oh, if we had just stayed for another 3 months, we would have been able to firmly entrench our idea of democracy in there, and that's why we should have taken more time pulling out.
Right, but like, what? People get upset about a 6-month abortion. This is literally a 20-year abortion. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a full-formed government. They're not going to be a functional state. No amount of us staying in the democratic womb of America will solve it. So what the fuck do people want? At some point, you just gotta get it out.
Yeah, they want a fantasy. Or they are more gross hawks who have vested interests, and they want continued money and the fuel of private contractors and the engine of American imperialism.
I get it if Cheney says this. Because I understand, like, Cheney directly profits from this. But if you're not Dick Cheney, if you're not the CEO of Halliburton, if you're not IBM, or if you're not like Raytheon, what is your reason for wanting these wars to keep going?
Because you have bought into an idea that's been sold to you, and you haven't been given the tools or information to sort out why it is completely empty and wrong.
Very frustrating.
And also because Americans and many people around the world and the kind of societies we generally live in developed nations today are completely disconnected from the state of other countries' affairs, especially those who are in a worse state than we are. Like, whether it's the Afghan people or whether it's even just our soldiers over there who are being driven to suicide. It's like, yeah, it's across the ocean. The news never covers it. Who gives a fuck?
I will also make a sort of a meta comment that I think explains some of this, which is Trump was the first sort of vaguely anti-war Republican we've had in a very long time, because he was the only one who didn't explicitly endorse the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The only one who was saying they were mistakes, was saying that we need to be more isolationist rather than more imperialist.
Yeah, it was very old school conservative.
He still did horrific violence. Like, he did just as much drone striking as Obama. Like, I'm not saying he didn't do evil things, but his ideological posture was one of sort of isolationism, xenophobia, and cowardice, which doesn't really jive with the ultra aggressive American imperialist expansion that's basically been the norm for most of our history. So I think a lot of people were really hoping that an extreme hawk like Hillary Clinton, or a moderate hawk like Obama, or they were hoping, hawk like Biden was going to turn course for America and have at least one of the two political parties unambiguously violently imperialist. And so for Biden to pull back at this juncture denies them the ability to go, all we have to do is support party R or party D. They're the hawks right now. But if Biden pulls back, who's the hawks?
I got two things on this, though. One, as you say, Trump was mostly the one who wants to pull away. And the cult of Trump is like almost the entire Republican base now.
Yeah.
So if you tell them, well, Trump wanted to pull out, they say yes. You say, if Biden wanted to follow up on what Trump said, they go, fuck Biden. But so, like, that's already incoherent because it's already cognitive dissonance. But secondly, during the Obama years, Obama would use Biden as the mouthpiece, the snarling dog, the saber rattler, to talk about fire and brimstone and will bring down hell, have fear, no fury, like a Biden pissed and shitting his pants. Like, Biden gave so many pro-war speeches during Obama's years, and Obama got to quietly be like, "Oh no, don't worry, I'm not very pro-war. Let's order more drones, please." Like,
exactly.
Like Biden was used as cover to be an attack dog, to be the hawk, and now that he's wanting to do what the previous Republican president did or wanted, they're like, "Oh no, we can't have this."
And which Obama basically promised to his constituents 12 years ago.
Right. Like,
this should be an unambiguous no-brainer of a thing that we should do both for ethical reasons, financial reasons, every reason, right? But because Biden was the posturing hawk compared to Trump throughout most of their respective careers, to even call what Trump has as a career, I think the media was really looking forward to a more aggressive Democratic president. They wanted like an LBJ.
Well, I guess Biden's just covered up and just taking the shots and just tanking it.
And because Biden's like, hey, I do like a big evil war now and then, but this one's stupid and we're losing it. We should leave. They didn't like that. Everyone didn't like that, to return to like the telltale.
Right, that was an affront to America.
Thing, right? Like, how could we diminish our imperial prestige by ending this pointless war that should never have continued this long? But really, like, if you think that TV news or major print news has any non-hawk contingent, I don't know what to tell you, because every one of them pushes American imperialism in one form or the other.
But but I still don't understand why. Why does the news love wars? Well, they barely cover them.
It's a more complicated question than that, but there's deeply incestuous connections between the American deep state and
I know. Essentially, okay, I know the answer to my own question, which is that the media relies on sources in the military and in the government to give them the news. But still, like, I guess if you were an anti-war news broadcast, you'd be shut out anyway. So it's only people who are pro-war even coming to the slop, coming to get the slop in the first place. But like, I just don't want. It's like they're so deeply committed to it, whereas the news should ideally be pretty neutral and impartial on this shit.
Yeah,
be like, oh yeah, we are in fact at war. Oh, we are in fact now pulling out of the war. Like, why does the news organizations and figureheads have opinions on this? Shouldn't they just be telling us what is?
Yeah, they should. I figured I'd end us out with an article that's actually not poorly written or bad. It's just an interesting topic that we haven't talked about in a while. And this is positive news for actually coming from the Hill. UN rules that Stephen Donziger house arrest violates international laws. In other words,
again? Oh shit! The judge with the oil thing,
right? With the basically the private trial that he was being subjected to and forced to be under house arrest.
Oh yeah, but Alex, this is the UN. They don't have any power. Who cares?
Well, maybe, but he could potentially use an announcement like this as part of an appeal when trying to appeal the obviously fraudulent.
Yeah, but that dude is still so boned. Like, I mean, once again, I don't know if we've covered it on this podcast. I don't think we have, but we've talked about this a lot together. Like, this is a real fucked up case of a guy who's been in house arrest for over 2 years now because the fucking oil company gave a bunch of people in South America cancer, and he sued them on their behalf with their assistance. and the whole big thing. Everyone who's listening probably knows about this case already. But like, I just don't know what this quite gets him.
I mean, he's been on house arrest for a long time. At the very least, renews public awareness and re-energizes legitimacy.
You know, it's sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we'll see how it bears out. You're right, because the UN is unfortunately often just passes resolutions, and whoever wants to follow them decides to follow them.
It makes me think of what we were just saying about when the news decides to have an opinion and when the news decides to be impartial. Look at the way this headline is written. It is matter of fact. It is impartial. It is opinionless. Oh, well, you know, UN says this guy's getting fucked. Like, okay. Whereas they're not like, we should be enraged at the affront to justice that the UN is finally recognizing. Like, the Hill is almost trying to downplay this. Like, oh, look, he got the UN on his side. I don't know. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, as opposed to when they talk about the things that we've been arguing over.
Out of this war, right? Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly true. Though, you know, as you say, because the UN is more advisory than teeth having, this may or may not actually directly help him. But in the court of public opinion and in the news coverage of the case, anything that helps remind everyone that this is extremely illegal and extremely unethical and ongoing is probably to his advantage.
Yeah, but you know what would get to be way more to his advantage? If someone went on Joe Rogan's podcast and talked about this case.
Yeah,
I kid you not. That would have more influence in the court of public opinion and with fucking American legislators. Okay, go ahead. Here's a blast out to the media space. If anyone who's like a moderate is friends with Joe Rogan or likes hunting and is friends with Joe Rogan, just bring up this case. Because just him being crazy and talking about like, oh man, it's totally unfair. Look, he doesn't love oil.
Rogan would hate this because it's an extremely authoritarian.
Genuinely,
thing.
He could be confused into talking about this news story, and that could free Donziger.
Good, yeah. God. Yeah, I mean, it's a brutal case, as Jason mentioned earlier. There's a number of other podcasts and media that have covered this. So
people have done deep dives on this.
But basically,
Chapo's interviewed him, I think.
This is a case where a guy is really only being punished by a sort of privatized version of the U.S. justice system because of his work on behalf of indigenous communities, because of his work against oil companies, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, follow this case if you weren't following it before.
The oil company he's suing hired the judge and the prosecutor that are prosecuting him.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. It's by definition not just.
No, not at all. And it is an unfortunate reminder that the United Nations has been decreasing in reach and power and prestige for decades. And not that it was ever a perfect institution, given that it's structured from the top down to be like a U.S. Tool. It is nonetheless at least some sort of international institution that can tell us once in a while when we're being dipshits. Hopefully, it'll be able to do something.
Oh, man, listen, I know this is your episode, Alex, but can I end this on a very real and pressing issue? You know, this has all kind of been window dressing, but I'd really like to talk about something that I feel very strongly about.
I'm just waiting. Hit me with that punchline.
You know, I don't like to talk about it that much because I'm not really connected to the culture, but I am pretty much full-blooded Irish, 2 generations removed, and there's a crisis at home right now. Clown shortage. Appeal for new recruits in Northern Ireland. The BBC.
What the fuck?
All right, that's all from us for this week, folks.
You know the meme where the person slowly puts clown makeup on?
Yeah.
Except it's whoever wrote this article and they solve their own problem.
Could you even imagine what an Irish clown is?
Yeah. I mean,
oh my God.
The accent's already like a half step there, so they really just need to put the nose on.
Holy shit.
These are the articles I want to be reading. This is the news that's fit for print.
Well, we didn't have anything too elaborate prepared for this time, so it's going to be a short and hopefully funny one.
We need to do a deep dive on the clowns next time.
Yeah, send in the clowns. Yeah, we're all thinking the same thing. We will catch you next time on another episode of the pod.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoy what we do here at the Non-Essential Workers Podcast and you want to support us, please check us out at patreon.com/non-essential-workers-podcast or by clicking the link below.
For $5, you get access to the Patreon feed and twice as many total episodes.
How many more?
I'll say it one more time for the back. Twice. Anyways, thanks and see you next time.